Good evening and welcome to the Voices of Change. My name is Jan and I'll be your host this evening.
And I'm Elliot. I'll be your co-host this evening.
I'm sorry, what's your name?
I'm Elliot Bell Janice Oda Gray.
Hello, Elliot Bell.
I'm Javon Johnson. I'm your guest co-host for the evening.
Javon
Johnson.
Everyone, maybe it's my ears.
Yeah, too much.
Too much. Oh yeah,
too
wait,
much.
wait. What did you name her? I forgot what you named her.
Shimmy.
Or Sylvia. I like.
Right. Too much going on in your hair today.
Come on. Wait. This isn't. I like them really wide. You know.
Oh, I know.
This is like really tame
Yeah.
compared to ours.
Oh, I know.
I'm delighted to have Elliot and Javon here this evening. There was supposed to be one more person here. That's why I kind of stopped. But I don't know what happened to that brother.
We're going to talk about him later.
But he is not here. Big shout out to my sponsor, GV Entertainment and Oda Enterprises. Also, did any of you watch Love Is?
I didn't catch it this
Oh my gosh.
I'm going to watch it tonight when I get in.
You know, it is so good. For those of you that watch Love Is, anyone that's tuned in, please let me know, and let me know also where you're at, what city you're in. If you're from Chicago, tell me what side of town you're on. I always start my show off with a scripture for today. It's from Mark chapter 11, verse 24, and it goes, "Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it and it will be yours."
Amen.
Now,
Amen.
that scripture is like, oh man, this is perfect. I can ask for anything. Last night I was asking for that $500 and some odd $million in the lotto. And I said, Lord, I am believing it. I'm believing it. So I received it, but I didn't get the notice today. And then I realized this scripture, and I'm just making a little jokey joke. This scripture isn't necessarily saying that, but what it's saying that if you have faith in God and build a relationship with him, and then in doing so, you'll have his desires and you'll share his desires. Therefore, being in his will, you'll ask for things that he will reward you with.
Indeed.
For today's show, we will discuss the news you can use items. And during the Real Talk segment, we will discuss the Stand Your Ground law and the recent Florida shooting, the Bart murder, and the R. Kelly 19-minute confessional.
19 minutes. A lot of confession.
19. It was
19 whole
long.
minutes.
And it felt like 19. It felt like longer.
Well, he's good about giving us these long stories anyway.
I really want
to.
I still feel a little bit mixed on that.
Yeah.
So we're gonna, and I know you feel, we're gonna talk about that. With so much dismal news, it's so refreshing to hear about artists with influence. I mean, artists that are near the top of their game doing something positive for the community.
Mm-hmm.
Have any of you heard of Slick?
Yes.
There is a song.
He knows everybody.
One of my favorite songs is called Addicted. Oh my gosh.
Yes, that's my favorite.
Yeah.
Too.
Oh my gosh. He's doing great stuff. With the persistence of violence in Chicago, before coming here, I heard about a 3-year-old girl getting shot in broad daylight.
Yes.
And she is living, right?
As far as I know, I was looking at it earlier. The girl was shot in both legs, and the father was
both
34.
legs.
Yeah. The girl was shot both legs, and the father, 34, was hit in the foot while a male walked up to the man and began firing shots at him with a handgun around 2:30 p.m. on the 1900 block of West 48th Street.
I really hope she makes a full recovery. Being that small, getting shot in both legs.
Yeah.
You were just telling me about someone in your neighborhood that was recently had a baby shot and paralyzed.
Yeah. Someone, one of my girlfriends, she was literally walking. According to the story, she used to live up the street from me, Mrs. Howard. We're gonna elaborate on this news story, but I used to live up the street from her on 58th in Michigan, and I'm just shocked to hear that this happened last week, and I had no clue it happened.
And you know her?
Yeah, personally.
Violence is a problem. This past weekend, 44 people were shot in Chicago, 7 killed. That's over a couple-day weekend.
Yeah.
So Slick, he's addressing this violence and decided to write a song. He collaborated with another person, but he wrote the song, and it's called We Are One. And there's a video that goes with it. For those of you that haven't seen it, I have it on my page. It's called We Are One. It's by the artist Slick. And also you can also find it on Slick's page, his fan page. And his name is spelled Slique, Slick. He's known for his rhythm and ghetto soul genre with hits such as my favorite, Addicted, One Day, and Body.
Body.
If you haven't heard it yet and viewed the video, make sure, if you haven't, make sure that you do so. I am trying to get him on the show. I don't want to speak prematurely, but
Come on the show.
I'm trying to not only get him on the show, but you know,
Yeah.
you know what I'm
You
going
want
to.
him to come and perform on the stage. across the way.
Addicted. Oh my God. We got this big beautiful studio. Big beautiful studio. If I can get him on the show and get him to perform that, I'll call some people and get a little audience. Oh my gosh. Anyway, I'm just too excited. Just a prospect. I was communicating with him today and he said he could definitely call it. I said, oh, you're invited to come on the show and
Come on the show.
Wow.
so
Come on the show.
I'm going to cross my fingers on that. But for right now, we'll be right back with the news you can use only on Intellectual Radio and iHeart Station. For those of you just tuning in, you're listening to The Voices of Change only on Intellectual Radio, and this segment is called The News You Can Use. According to WGN TV News, a woman was shot and killed while walking into a residential building in the city's Washington Park neighborhood. Lashana Howard, 27, was walking with another person into her apartment building in the 5600 block of South Michigan Avenue around 1:30 a.m. last Thursday when shots were fired. She was hit in the head and the leg and later pronounced dead at the hospital. Howard was a mother of 2 girls. This is a young lady that you know, correct?
Yes. I used to live on 58th in Michigan about a year ago,
Mhm.
and I met her because she would take her kids to the park where my apartment building was across from.
Oh.
And it's just so sad to hear this. And I just feel like I wish people would stop the senseless killing and shooting. Like, it's unnecessary. Learn how to deal with your problems in different ways instead of taking someone else's life.
Yeah, we do have a violence problem. And I don't know. They claim that the violence and the shooting this year is way down from last year and prior years. Just doesn't feel like it.
No.
It doesn't feel like it at all. The cardiologist who treated former President George H.W. Bush was killed Friday morning in a bicycle-to-bicycle drive-by shooting near Texas Medical Center in Houston. Dr. Mark Hosnick and the shooter were both riding bikes on Main Street near Texas Children Pavilion for Women. Hosnick, 65 years old, was biking north when he passed a shooter going in the other direction. The shooter turned, fired 2 shots at him, and rode away on his bike. Hosnick was taken to a hospital where he was pronounced dead. Investigators didn't know if the shooting was targeted, random, or caused by road rage. He said a few people witnessed the shooting and video may become available. They're still trying to find out what happened. Now, your people are driving in the car and they're doing drive-bys and they're shooting. People are on bikes and they're shooting. Now these people they're passing by and one's going one way, one's going the other way. Doesn't that sound targeted?
Yes.
It does to me. I don't know. Bike rage?
I don't even think that's possible.
Well,
They were going opposite ways. They weren't. So
They
normally
plan-
it's because
they
they
plan
cut
that.
off.
they plan that.
Yeah, something about that is
You just
real.
don't randomly do that. You plan that kind of thing. And more than likely, this sounds like, this doctor, he has a routine of probably riding his bike in the
He
same
probably every
area,
day, the same
every day at the
time.
right.
Mhm.
And they've been watching and planning and, said, okay, we're going to get him for whatever the reason. That was definitely planned.
Tragedy struck Table Rock Lake near Branson, Missouri on Thursday night when a tourist duck boat capsized, claiming the life of 17 people. There were 31 people on board, ranging in ages of 1 to 76 years old. One family, the Colemans, lost 9 family members.
Yes.
Only 2 members of the family survived, Tia Coleman and her 13-year-old nephew. Tia lost her husband, her parents-in-law, and all 3 of her children. From her hospital bed, Tia shared her experience. I couldn't hear screams. It felt like I was out there on my own. And I was yelling, screaming, and finally I said, Lord, just let me die. Just let me die. I can't keep drowning. I just can't keep drowning. And then I just let go. Well, luckily, someone must have grabbed her or found her because she's one of the survivors. I think all these folks were from Indianapolis.
Wow.
And it's real. Could you imagine? I've been on one of those duck boats in Wisconsin somewhere,
Okay.
Yeah,
and
they have them
they're
there.
kind of weird. I mean, they're kind of just. But from what I understand, she said that the guy who was driving it or whatever told them they didn't have to put on the vest. And normally, anytime you're on water, they tell
have
you to
you
put on the vest because
vest.
you don't know if people can, even if they can swim, the water looks ew.
Yeah.
And from what I heard, it was a bad storm that came on.
Mm.
So I don't understand. This next story is these stories are just one after the other. Police are searching for a suspect in the brutal slaying of a black teen Sunday at the MacArthur BART station in Oakland, California. Authorities say 18-year-old Nia Wilson died after her throat was slit by the man who was identified as 20-year-old John Cowell. Her sister, who was also stabbed, survived the attack. Police say Cowell approached the 2 sisters on the train platform at 9:45 p.m. Sunday night, shortly after they had disembarked. Authorities say the attack appears to be random. A man who identified himself as the father of the victim, Ansar Mohammed, said he wanted justice for his daughters. Wilson was a student at Oakland High. Wilson had been celebrating the birthday of a boyfriend who drowned in a lake only 2 years ago.
Wow.
Now, you've probably seen pictures all over the internet. Beautiful, youthful 18-year-old girl with her life in front of her.
Yes.
And from what I understand, it happened so fast. She couldn't even react. I mean, could you imagine you're getting off on the platform and somebody just kind of comes inside you and slit your throat?
Unbelievable.
And that goes back to mental illness with people. I don't think that people are taking it serious, but this is a prime example of that. People need to go seek help instead of just roaming the streets and doing things that have no business doing like that.
I just hope that it isn't something more insidious, like um, all these little white on black crimes and issues are just springing up. I just hope he wasn't walking around looking for 2 black girls to slit their throat.
Never know.
Uh,
I don't put anything past anybody these days. It would
So
not surprise
now,
me.
when you're on the L or when you're on the platform, now you're looking all around because you're worried about someone getting too close to you to slit your throat.
I've always been like that.
You're
though.
worried about when you go down from the platform. You're looking around to hope you don't see no bullets flying.
Mhm.
I mean, you how much stress can one deal with?
Let's just put this out there. What happens a lot, and I'm not saying that this was her case. What I see a lot of, just in me riding around, we are on the bus and the headphones on, and they tend to be a handicap sometimes. So we get into our phones, we get into our music, and we just go about our routine, and we are not aware of what's going on. Now, this is a different case because she didn't see. I'm sure she didn't see him coming. He came out of nowhere for her. But as a safety precaution, we shouldn't be on our headphones and into our phones that much on public transportation because anybody can come from anywhere and do anything. You have to always be aware, always be alert, always watch your surroundings. Like if I'm on the train, I'm watching everything, everybody. I'm sitting in a place where I can see everything. You aren't going to get too close to me. If I feel like something is up, I'm getting off on the next stop. I'm not even going to another car. I'm getting on a whole nother train. I don't know. It's too much happening.
Yeah.
Man.
Got to be careful.
As they say, stay woke, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Police are searching for a 15-year-old boy who went missing Sunday from the Lawndale neighborhood on the southwest side. Brandon Tyrone was reported missing from the 1400 block of South Trumbull, according to an alert from Chicago police. He's known to frequent the area around the 1200 block of South Lawndale. Tyrone is described as 5'8", 140-pound black youth with brown eyes, black hair, and a medium complexion. Police said he was last seen wearing a white t-shirt and white jeans. And this story upset me, of course, because I know you've been hearing about all these young black girls on the west side being missing or
Yeah.
killed.
Yes.
It
All in
makes
my
you kind of,
neighborhood.
do you remember? Well, you don't remember, but it was a long, long, long time ago in Atlanta, Georgia. There was a rash of young black boys that were missing,
Yeah.
and they said they found the perpetrator who did it. He was some kind of goofy looking overweight black guy who no one ever believed he really did it because these were like young. I mean, you figure
Yeah.
a 16-year-old black boy could have took him. I mean,
Right.
and then what they found out later that young black youth had something in their blood system, interferon, and they were using it for cancer treatment and AIDS treatment.
Wow.
And these
Wow.
kids just were missing like over maybe an 18-month time frame.
Mm-hmm.
So with these young black girls being missing, it's alleged, I don't know if it's true, that some of them had body parts missing. And I
Yes.
know you've
Yes.
heard
Yes.
before about the possibility of people wanting body parts and
Yes.
killing people to get them. And I remember there was a movie out a long time ago. I think it was called Coma.
Seven wasn't one of them too, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
where they would operate on people, and they knew that there was a match, like for a kidney or something for a rich person. Then something would happen in the operation, and they would get their organ. Oh
Something would
God.
happen.
Okay,
Oh,
okay.
yeah. Something. Yeah.
That
And this is a wake up call for young black men in Chicago to let you all know that you're kind of like in the same position as females when you're walking or when you're alone or you're in a group. You can be snatched up too. So it's
yeah.
always just to be vigilant of who you're surrounding yourself with and where you're going.
When I was younger,
You don't even want to go anywhere at night.
No,
yeah,
I
you
don't
I mean,
don't.
really.
When I was younger, it was very seldom that me and the group of kids I went to school with, we never were really by ourselves. We all met, like we went to a school in the neighborhood, like within walking distance. I stayed like 2 blocks away, so it would be a group of us. We would all walk 2 blocks, and whoever was on the block where the school was, they'd walk, and we'd all meet with parents. At 8:30 in the morning, we would all walk to school together, and
the
then
whole group of
the
you.
whole group of us, and then we would meet up after school. We play around or whatever, then we walk back, and we'd all walk our separate ways home. But it was always somebody watching. We had parents on almost every block who had kids, and they knew who the
That's how
kids
it was
were.
growing up. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
like I think
It
I'm the
was
last.
groups of you walking,
Yeah,
talking.
we
Yeah,
couldn't be out real late. We didn't
yeah.
do none of that. If we were all out together, somebody's parent was watching us. Because it was always something going on. I believe times have changed.
Yes.
I may have been the last generation to really experience that whole group thing because now everybody's kind of trying to be on their own, do their own
They don't
thing.
walk in groups anymore. The
No, I
kids.
don't see it
Oh,
that
the
much.
parents take them.
I don't see it.
Oh,
I do see parents, but that's where they have the people who are the watchers
oh yeah. I've
on
heard
the
about them.
corner.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
but are the kids walking by themselves?
some are and some aren't. But my thing is, if my child is in the age of 1 through 8th grade, and I don't care how tall you are, how big you are, I'm gonna make sure you get to school, whether I'm taking the bus with you, walking, or driving you.
But what happened to? Have we stopped having kids to the point where there's no longer groups of kids school age?
Yes,
Because we were
because
growing up,
we used
everybody
to
had a
walk
bunch
with
of
our
kids,
siblings.
right? Your siblings,
And
your
most of that group,
friends.
right? Most of that group was siblings, and then you had their friends. But you had like I was like basically not an only child, but my sister is like 12 years older than me. But it was this young man and his sister and this one and their brother. So you had very few of us were just like only children. You had them
Yeah,
and
true.
their siblings, and they were close together, or at least a little bit older. That has changed where parents aren't having 3 and 4 kids that close together. They may be having one child,
Hmm.
you know, maybe one, maybe two, but usually if one and they're gonna have two, they better be twins, so we ain't going through no more, whatever the case may be,
Yeah, you,
or
you
they'll
don't
have them
you
so many
don't
years
see
apart.
a lot of kids even when school starts. You know how you see all these kids running around. You
You
don't
don't.
see a lot of
No.
that.
That goes into, even though it's kind of sidebar, that goes into the school system where we've watched them close all these schools because of low enrollment, partially because of a lot of parents have moved out of the neighborhood, but then a lot of parents aren't having kids. I went to my old elementary school. We had 3 buildings. For as long as I've been there, 3 buildings, and all 3 buildings were filled. I went back to do the graduation this year, and I went into the old building, and it's a whole building that's empty, and the other building is like half full. I said, "Where's everybody?" Oh, they're all in one building. Like they aren't having any kids anymore. They're moved out. So
They're not having kids, or
the
some would say that there's more aborted fetuses and live births
yes,
in our community,
Hmm.
which is a
yes,
whole different talk show, which we're not going to
yes,
get into that.
yes.
Hmm. Chad Merrill was just trying to be the peacemaker, according to family and friends, when he stepped up in defense of his friend, a black man who was being subject to racial slurs and other verbal abuse. The situation did not end peacefully, however. Moments after speaking up, he was shot and killed at the Red Rose Restaurant and Lounge in York, Pennsylvania.
Wow.
What they said happened was James Saylor, the alleged killer, squeezed his way into a group of men seated at the bar. There was a man seated between Saylor and Gerald Douglas. Gerald Douglas was the black guy.
Hmm.
But that didn't stop him from launching into his verbal harassment and assault using the N word and other racial slurs. The owner of the bar intervened shortly after kicking Saylor out of the bar because of his behavior. Okay, so the owner heard this, saw this, and said, "You got to go."
Right.
Kicked him out. Surveillance footage from the bar shows Saylor walking out into the parking lot over to a pickup truck he attempts to get in, but it wasn't his car, so maybe he was drunk. Saylor then pulls a gun from his shorts, half turns towards the bar, and fires a weapon. It just blowing off steam, maybe. The bullet grazed the building and was later recovered in a nearby grassy area. However, after the first shot was fired, Saylor finally finds his truck and get inside and start the engine. At that exact moment, an Uber driver pulls in, preventing Saylor from leaving the establishment. That allowed Merrill, this is the white guy, the friend of the black guy, who had come out of the bar to catch up with Saylor. He was right there standing next to the truck. Now, they don't know if there was words exchanged, but it looked like there were words exchanged. He probably said, why would you talk to that guy like that? Whatever. Anyway, according to police, they don't know if any words were exchanged before Saylor allegedly fired the fatal shot, but the bullet struck Merrill right in the chest, sped off, hitting the Uber driver's vehicle as he left. And Merrill died. So crazy guns. And we're going to talk about guns for a minute. So that's one of our 3 topics.
This is the
Just-
world we live in.
It's getting from bad to worse.
It's not uncommon. There was a story almost similar to this when I was a junior in high school. Actually, sophomore going into my junior year, there was a football party going on, and some older guys tried to get into the football party. And one of my friends who I went to school with was like, "You all can't come in. This is a private party." They said, okay. They left, got a group of their guys, came back, surrounded the entire house.
Got a group of their guys.
Got a group of their guys and came back, surrounded the entire house and started shooting up the house. And my friend ran to the back of the house, jumped out the window, and they said he ran, and the guy that he spoke to ran after him and chased him 7 blocks out of Chicago into the Austin area.
7 blocks?
And emptied the gun and killed him. Just shot him till he fell dead.
Wow.
That was like 2003.
This was a party you were at?
I wasn't there. My friend was there. My friend that got killed.
Oh,
I went to elementary and high school with him.
Wow. Something similar happened to me when I was in high school. It was my senior year, and we had a party right along 57th and Wabash, and there were people, I guess, in the neighborhood who wanted to come into the party, and we didn't know them. And when they came back shooting, and, most of us were running, and I did get grazed with 2 bullets on my left leg. I still have the wounds from that, and that lets people know and let me know that I don't need to be hanging around house parties or areas like that where it's just random people walking up.
But it just seems like if you're at a house party, just say if I give a party at my house and I say, "Oh, come to the party," it seems like it would be pretty safe because you know who's giving it, you know the people there. How are you going to know someone's going to try to get in that don't belong there and get ticked off because they're not let in and come back to shoot up? What is this?
It's people. It's mental illness. It steers all towards
You're putting
that word.
everything is mental illness.
It sounds like you may have a phone call. Somebody calling in there. Let's see.
A powerful TV executive is painfully paying for her racist rants after she was caught on camera making disparaging remarks about Black people. Amy Powell was discussing a new program that will feature a predominantly African-American cast when she made the remarks. At least 4 people heard the executive make offensive remarks about Black people, which including stereotyping African-American women as angry and saying Black children are raised in single-parent homes. Several people raised concerns about Powell's lengthy rant, which prompted an internal investigation. Paramount Pictures chief executive Jim Giannopoulos announced Thursday in a memo to staff that he fired the studio's TV president, Amy Powell, the Los Angeles Times reported. Powell, who was named the president of the company in 2013, denied making these comments, vowing to explore legal action against the studio. 2 questions for you. Do you think they're overreacting and firing people too quickly?
No, because it's disrespectful.
I'm just
it's laid out disrespectful. No.
I knew he was gonna do it.
No. My thing is, it goes back to how you say things and how you come off. My thing is, if it sounds racist or it is, then it's a problem, especially for me because I'm young and I'm black. And I feel like we should not be tolerating anyone of any other race, even from our own brothers and sisters, to be disrespected. Period.
Okay. I mean, I guess he answered that. I just, because
He gets fired up
week
about it, but I
week
get it.
after week after week. So my question is, are people just getting the nerves to say these kind of things in open meetings? Four people heard her, four
Look,
executives heard her, or have they always been saying it? No one reported it before.
I mean,
Why the surge?
I believe it's always been said.
Oh,
yes.
And well, let me not put us out there, but I believe
maybe because we maybe weren't in the boardroom. I don't know.
me and you have worked together.
Oh yeah, we have.
And so we've had some experience, maybe not to that magnitude, but it's been very subtle things.
Hmm.
You know, everybody tried to tiptoe around it without really getting in trouble. Now people are getting bold. It's always been said,
But they're
and
bold. They're just.
and because it's never been nipped in the bud when it was a subtle thing, it's grown. They said, "Well, let me see how far I can push this," because they're not gonna do nothing. And now they come to that place where everybody's like they're blowing the whistle on it because you can't just get away with that. You got away with it too long, and we call ourselves being nice about it when it's subtle. It's like when you deal with children. If you
Mhm.
don't whoop your child or
Nip it in the
discipline your
bud.
child
Yeah.
when they do small things, they'll keep testing you until it's too big. Then you got to just knock them out. Nope, let me put this fear in you now.
Then you've created a beast.
Right. So if you handle it at its early stages, you won't have to deal with this bigger issue later because they know what's coming.
Okay, being two black men, there was something that this woman said that I hear all the time. So I want each of your individual opinions. Do you think generally we not 100%? There's never anything 100%. Are African American, are black women angry?
No.
I like him.
No. My thing is,
Of course you do.
my thing
You
is,
know
if
it.
you want to say black women are angry, then all women should be angry, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
I
then. So
agree.
case closed.
Oh, okay. All right.
And we will go on to the next one. A man who physically attacked a black woman. No wonder she's angry. They physically attacked. No.
Oh,
A man who
wow.
physically attacked a black woman and hurled racist slurs at her agreed to pay a small settlement to have his charges dropped. Islam El Masri, the owner of Small Pharaohs Egyptian, agreed to pay Carlotta Washington $1,000 to have his harassment and fourth-degree assault charges dropped. Masri sprayed sriracha hot sauce in Washington's eyes and drenched her with Gatorade. The assault happened after the customer tried to pay in quarters for her lamb meal. The food cart owner apparently got upset and pushed the coins back at her. He then called her a nigger and threw a bottle her way, which knocked the woman's phone out of her hand. Washington recorded the entire incident. You believe
Wow.
that?
See, here's
A
my thing
food
too. Yeah, a food truck or a food stand. This is ridiculous, and this is all all this courage that all other people who aren't colored is steering from the person who's in office. Period. You all can't think that you're untouchable, or just because you do something that you're gonna not, be condemned or be judged or in punishment for it. Like it's ridiculous. Like I would never do anyone like that if they came
Well,
to
we
my food
we
truck.
actually talked about last 2 weeks ago, maybe we had talked about it because I found it interesting. Someone brought it to my attention that there's a long historical context of how Arabs feel about blacks. I'm thinking
Yes.
because we're all dark, from kind
Yeah.
of.
Not
Yeah, but
necessarily.
Yes.
Because
when
that's
you
just
look at
like you
history,
lumping.
when you yeah, ignorance on my part, I'm thinking okay, because you're brown or dark or whatever,
Because that's
but
just like
doesn't
you
mean
lumping
anything,
Latinos and Puerto Ricans together.
right?
But
That's
they're
a big
still
no-no.
colored people.
Yeah, but
We
Yeah,
are
but
under.
they
We are all under that colored
yeah, but
people.
people still have their individuality and their
and Arabs
cultural
and blacks
backgrounds.
have a long history, particularly how they feel about black women. We're not gonna
Yeah,
get into that right now
yeah,
either, but that
yeah.
I thought that was interesting.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Let's look at what Chase Bank has done. Chase Bank under fire after rejecting compensation check of wrongly convicted black man. Chase refused to deposit a check from the state for his time in prison. The Chicago man spent 20 years behind bars for a crime he did not commit.
Yeah.
The $169,876 deposit was refused not once, but twice.
Mm.
On the second occasion of being denied, it raised suspicion that racism played a role. Chase did issue an apology for the inconvenience. The last story, this is just Time is getting away from us. Oh,
Yeah,
I gotta read
always.
about. It turns out the Black Twitter is not just a place for mimes and watching the Shiggy challenge. Protesters in St. Louis gathered to shut down a convenience store and block the exits after a video emerged of the store's owner and another employee attacking a woman, prompting people who viewed the assault on social media to actually do something about it right then and there.
Wow.
At 10 o'clock this morning, Shamika Russell recorded an employee of Gasmart confronting a woman outside the store. As the woman and the man from the store argued, another man alleged to be the owner of the gas station came outside and kicked the woman to the ground. After the first kicker goes back into the store, the other man, apparently jealous of his boss' racist kung fu, decides to join in on the treat a black woman bad and kick the woman again. One of the workers, an Arab gentleman, kicked her in the stomach like she was a dog, said Jermaine, one of the protesters and resident of the community. So they went there to shut it down and said, no more business for these people. They're going to understand that we feed them. They live off of our community.
Amen.
Ooh, saw it on Twitter and
There has always been an uproar or some kind of conversation, quote unquote, about uh, Arabs being in our community.
yeah, but I didn't know there was that much conflict.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
when you go to Detroit, that's all you see.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's
but
like-
it's always been kind of that.
I
deal.
didn't know it was the
It's always been that. It's been one of those quiet things because they don't make a big deal because it's like, okay, we still getting something out the deal, but we're still like, watch what you do, watch what you say.
I didn't know,
you know,
until
'cause you-
recently. Someone
yeah.
sent me something, and then I read up on it historically. And I'm like, yikes.
Yeah.
Demi Lovato, I love her voice. Has long been open about her struggles with substance abuse and
Her mental health issues.
mental health issues.
Your favorite subject.
I know. Her words are now taking on new meaning given her hospitalization Tuesday for an apparent drug overdose. The news was met with shock and sadness from friends, and we are hoping and praying for a speedy recovery.
Once
for her.
more and
Indeed.
again, we've said it for the past 3 weeks. Being a celebrity, being
I
in the
know. I was
limelight
thinking
is not
because
all
she's
it's cracked up to
beautiful,
be.
she's talented.
Let me tell you
I'm
this.
just
let me,
saying.
Let me give you a personal story. So maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, I went through a very hard bout of depression. Like every day, I was boohooing and crying every day, non-stop.
Mhm.
And I was hugging everybody I saw. And they know me at church to be somebody that greets everybody. And they said, we didn't know you was going through that. We just thought you wanted to hug us. I said, no. I felt like so out of it. I was so not myself and nobody knew. And sometimes being in front and being in charge of stuff, it gets to you. The pressure gets to you. It's not all it's cracked up to be. There's always something you're missing. You sacrifice something to be where you are. You are never totally yourself when you get out here. There's always a piece of you that you got to leave behind. There's a piece of you that you don't get to take.
How long
with
ago was
you.
this?
This was about 3 or 4 years ago.
I didn't know.
Wow.
Exactly. Nobody knew.
I mean, and me and you were like,
Yeah.
Wow.
Everywhere I go, I was boohooing and crying every time. They get up and sing, I'd be crying all the time.
well, just being emotional in church.
No,
Oh.
I know my emotions in church. This was like deep, hard, depressing, sadness,
Depression
loneliness,
is
all that.
real. Depression
It's
is
real.
real. Yeah,
And it's
it is
there.
real.
And just because you have it all, don't mean you have it all. You're missing something.
Different life, different life throws so many different things at you that can put you in a tailspin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think all of us have been there where we're just down and depressed and
Yeah.
different things happen that we can't control that we it's real. It's real.
It's very real.
And to quickly leave you out with this saying, pour yourself into other, meaning, if you see someone who you are close with or you are friends with or your family member and you see that there's a different mood and change or their behavior, sit down and talk to them and ask them what's wrong. You have to try to help people out. Thank you.
And that's his PSA for mental health.
Yes.
I won't give mine, but the mental health center
Yes.
in
we do.
Lawndale Garfield Park in the near West Side is coming.
We're
Now
excited
for our
about
real
it.
talk segment. Stand your ground. Man who was shot and killed another man in Florida this week during an argument over a parking space. We all know about it. Brittany Jacobs, 25, was sitting in a car parked in a handicapped space outside a convenience store in that state of Florida on Thursday afternoon when a man, Michael Draka, approached her vehicle and started looking for a handicap permit, walking around her car like he was stupid.
Wow.
Miss Jacobs' boyfriend, Markels McLaughlin, and their 5-year-old son were in the store when Miss Jacobs and Mr. Draka began to yell at each other whether she was permitted to be in that space. In a video recorded on a surveillance camera, Mr. McLaughlin, 28, exits a Circle A food store, approaches Mr. Draca, who he comes up. She's arguing with his girlfriend, wife, or whatever she
Yeah.
is,
Mhm.
and he shoves him. The man falls. He shoves him to the ground. After Mr. McLaughlin takes a few steps back, looking as if he's going back to his car, get his family, and leave, Mr. Draca pulls out a gun and shoots him once in the chest. And that's it. He felt that he was in imminent danger, and that's what the stand your ground law is all about.
And this is where that stuff gets real tricky, and this is where it
There
kind
is
of backfires, if you will.
okay.
You know, yeah, it's
Like, what if I wanted to stand my ground here in Chicago? We had that law, and a Chicago police officer assaults me. That means I have the right to pull out my gun and to shoot him to defend myself. Correct?
Well, the stand your ground law is sometimes called the line in the sand or the no duty to retreat law. It authorizes you, if you feel threatened, to protect yourself, to defend
Oh,
your life by taking another life.
okay.
it does.
But as
Again, it gets
as we
tricky.
all know, it isn't about, well, yeah, it can get tricky. If you remember several years back, Trayvon Martin.
Yeah,
Now,
Yeah.
how was that stand your ground? Because
that wasn't.
did he have any weapons on him?
No, he did not.
I don't even think they even mentioned it toward the end. You know, they're about to prosecute Zimmerman with his. I don't want to say anything about him. Anyway, they were about to prosecute. Thank you. They were about to prosecute him, but then a woman says, "Yeah, but stand your ground." And they're thinking, "Oh, stand your ground. Oh, I felt offended. Oh, I felt my life in danger. Oh, that's why I killed him." And oh, he got out.
So
And you hear it happening more and more. And since
Yes.
2005, since they've had this law, the number of people that have gotten killed has tripled.
of
A
course,
disproportional amount number of black people, obviously.
of
Yeah.
course.
And you hardly ever hear of stand your ground law when it comes to, just for instance, that woman, the woman in the other story. If I
Yes.
would have been the woman, and if someone would have, I don't know, pushed me down or threw hot sauce at my eyes or what, and I felt fearful because I'm really scared and I wanted to protect my life because I felt this guy was threatening my life, could I have shot him and gotten away with it?
Indeed, because you're under the law. If you felt threatened in any type of way, and that's physical
That's what it.
abuse what he was doing to her.
That's what it should be. So when they were in California and they were on the train track, and the one sister neck got severed because he cut her. Then he cut the other sister. So if the other sister would have had a gun, and if she would have shot him and blown him away, do you think she would have got off scot free?
No, she's black. Let's remember that.
Oh, he is just so. I'm just gonna. You know what? He's.
I have nothing to say.
My conscience. I'm
Now,
not gonna say
don't you
anything.
want to read the Bart story, the Neil Bart?
Oh,
Yeah.
the Bart. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, because we. What's
Yeah,
Oh gosh.
yeah.
The time.
So
Okay.
wanna get
Okay.
to that.
Folks are outraged over a local news station. Well, we already kind of read about the Bart story, and we
Yeah.
read about her when she. But this is what's interesting. A local news station in the San Francisco Bay this past weekend, they put out a story where they had an old picture of her, and she was kind of posing like this, and it looked like she had a gun. So what they're trying to do is, now she did. What they were trying to do is criminalize her.
Right.
They found out ultimately that was a cell phone, and she was just, acting
See.
silly and posing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the folks were outraged at that news station for doing that. And you see this happening over and over again now. That is so disrespectful. This girl is gone, and particularly the horrific way how she was gone,
Yes.
how she died
Yes.
by having her throat slit.
Terrible.
And I still tend to think that wasn't so much random and he was cray and mentally ill.
Yeah. That.
I
that
still
could very
tend
well be
to
a
think
planned
he was
thing
looking for two black women
Yeah.
to
to just cut.
cut the throat.
Go.
R. Kelly confessions.
Ha.
Most of
Oh,
us,
Lord.
is. Well, look what time it is already. Got like less than 10 minutes.
I told you.
Most of us have listened to the song,
Yes,
Mm,
twice.
Twice.
and I am so conflicted over it because I came out here wondering, okay, if I were the one in charge, would I pull him from Spotify or pull him for whatever? Would I shut down his concerts? Would I do that? And Elliot eloquently said, well, if it's gonna mess up my bottom line, then that's going to happen. I'm going to pull it.
Yeah, entertainment is about self-preservation at the end of the day. No matter how we pan it out to be, if you're doing something that's detrimental to my company, and I feel like, I'm going to suffer because of it, I'm going to drop you. And I believe most presidents would feel that
and I
way.
do get that because the president is there to keep the bottom line as high as possible.
Exactly.
I get that. I personally think that they were kind of uh, in a way jumping on a bandwagon with the Me Too and everything else going on. And the reason why I'm thinking that is because I can go way back to the 90s. I don't
Yeah.
remember exactly what year. When they said the little girl from Oak Park or the West Side, the little 14, 15-year-old girl video,
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my.
you guys were like little kids then,
Well,
but
not that little.
the video was circulating everywhere. I
I
think I
remember
got
the
a copy
video.
out
I
of
actually
church.
saw it. I actually saw it. So
Oh,
Not kidding.
oh,
Someone said,
yeah.
I got a copy. You want to see it? And I'm like, okay.
Like that thing went everywhere. Like we were like, oh my goodness, we were kids. Like I may have been in like seventh
wasn't
grade,
that his
sixth grade.
goddaughter in the video though?
I don't know who that girl was, but if you watched it, I mean,
Yeah.
it was, and it doesn't matter how much experience it seemed as if she had. He was of age, he was older than her, so therefore he took advantage of her because
Yes.
she was
Indeed.
so young.
And they
And
look
I
at.
do understand that. But if that would have happened now in the Me Too era,
Oh.
he would have got roasted.
Oh,
Yeah.
What happened
definitely.
then? There was some pushback. A lot of people were disgusted with him, but not really.
Because they still bought his music because he still had a career. Even though in the song he
Yeah.
talks about, oh, I'm at rock bottom, and he talks about,
But now he probably is close to rock bottom because he's being shut out.
well, yeah. Again, that goes to this thing that if you, I think I mentioned to you before, when stuff like this comes out and you're in the limelight, if you don't get a rebuttal like right on the spot, the media's gonna take it and run with it. So they may have blown this thing up bigger than it is. They may have, we really don't know. But because you haven't said anything and so much time has gone by, and now you putting it out here, and you still haven't officially said, well, I didn't do this, I didn't do that. You still kind of left it open, even in the song.
Because he didn't admit to anything really. I mean,
I mean,
he admitted personal stuff, but he didn't admit to that cult like thing and having those girls hostage and having the girls call him a certain name.
yeah,
So I don't know. Is it true? It could be. I don't know if it's true or not.
I mean, there was background information that I had researched and looked up on, and there were a couple of girls that had to sign non-disclosure agreements when they were
Mhm.
pretending to work for him, and they were young. Some has not come out publicly, and some didn't want to sign it and still went forward with suing him. And he has paid some of those women off from the 90s until 2008. My thing is, you can't really condemn people or judge people. We all make mistakes, no matter what your mistake is, whether it's big or it's small. We can't do that because we're not walking in his shoes. We only could just, sit back and say, you need to right your wrong. And that goes for everybody that's been doing a lot of wrong
So
things in the
let me ask
media.
this because I agree with you because I'm kind of torn because
Me too.
I listened to what he said and for all I know it could have just been him saying that just to get the sympathy. I don't know. I
we
he
really
maybe
don't
he
know.
did it, maybe he did part of it. I don't know. Should he be shut down? Should he not be able to continue making a living?
I don't think so because they've wrongfully convicted a lot of people of doing things that they didn't do. We know that. And there's a lot of people who are walking away scot free from a lot of things they've done that they should be in jail for. So, no.
Once again, I say, like I told you before, it's easier to ask for an apology than it is to ask for permission. I would rather be the person, okay, well, if this is what you did, let's handle this. And if we're wrong, I can come back and apologize to you and then you can do whatever. But if we got hurting people out here because of stuff you did and we don't do anything about it, that makes it that's on us. We have to make sure that we take care of that. I'm not saying he did it,
I don't know
but
if he did it.
nobody really knows, and that's the big deal. Nobody knows. We're all just kind of looking off of what he's saying, and there's nobody to really come out and say, well, he did X, Y, and Z, and he's not going to admit to it. There's nothing to really give us a concrete answer.
And then he talks about his personal issues, like he can barely
Dyslexia,
read,
yeah,
from what
Yeah.
I understand. I
and
don't know
how
if he could.
he signed his life away when he was first coming out as an artist, signing out his
Yeah, but
publishing rights and all
a
that
lot
stuff.
of people do that because
Yeah.
they don't have lawyer. They don't read the fine print. I mean, you
Right.
almost have to be a lawyer to understand anyway. So I understand that, but from what I understood, he said he couldn't read the teleprompter really.
Yeah.
Right.
Not that he
At
couldn't
the
see
very
it, he
least,
couldn't read it. He couldn't read it.
And so he probably, like I think he said, he couldn't really read the contract anyway when he first did it.
He said he was sexually abused
Right.
at a young age.
Which I guess speaks to the issue, and because it's a common thing, people are still like, oh well, yeah, everybody's been abused. Not to throw it away,
Well, a lot of people have been.
but they have been.
A lot
And
of
so
people
it's
have
like they're
been.
not taking that as an excuse for for you allegedly doing what people say you did.
And to be clear, there are different levels of abuse. So, it all depends on how he was treated coming up with this person who allegedly raped him. So,
Yeah,
you don't know if he was beaten after he was raped or anything could happen. So, you just have to really just take a, seat and just sit down and like ask Mr. Robert, like, talk to me, tell me
But
what's wrong.
you really don't know if he's telling the truth or if he's not. Because
That's true. That's
a
true.
lot of people
Not.
saying
That's true.
he's actually doing that for sympathy. So people will feel
And
sorry
let's
for
hope
him. And
that you wouldn't go that far to dig
right.
into personal
But
issues like
people have
dyslexia
before.
and being touched as a child. Because that if you're lying about that stuff and that comes out, that's going to make it worse for you. You haven't even begun to hit rock bottom because they're going to eat you alive.
That's an example of the woman who lied that was working for the NAACP. That's just a prime example. That's what I'm saying. You always
Ooh-wee.
can't go for people without
Because
really.
people will lie.
Yeah,
I mean, bad.
And then he talked about Wendy Williams and
Yes.
Aaliyah.
Yes.
And I think he had one word for that, love. I think he
Love.
really did love the girl, the young girl. And again, the age disparity, 27, 15, we know
Isn't right.
that,
Underage.
yeah.
Should have went to jail. Let's just be real. If that's the case.
Well, there's been other people in the industry that's married girls that were young like that and they weren't
Yeah.
put in jail. But I'm not okay.
But
Anybody
it's true.
that does
It's
that,
true. It's fact.
I'm not saying necessarily just for him, but anybody that does that, with that big of an age gap, you're still a minor. You should go to jail. I don't care who you are. 15, 27.
If consent is given, that's still different too. You have to
I
think about
guess I
that.
still
You
don't-
still do have to
I
think
still
about
don't
that.
consider that to be-
I
Well,
don't either.
you know
But
what,
if
I-
someone says out their mouth that they consent, what can you do about that?
I personally, I'm still torn with this. I'd hate to strip the man of making a living.
Yeah.
Would you trust him with your daughter, your niece, whatever? What did he say? Don't bring your girls to me. We won't. We wouldn't.
Right.
I'm just saying.
No.
So he did hit that point where parents have thrown their girls to him and say, "Oh, it's okay," and it's not. I get it.
And parents
know-
do for selfish reasons. They do it because they're hoping that their girl saw that and they're going to blow up. If the girl blows up, they blow up, right?
And that's a whole nother story for a whole nother day. Don't
Yeah,
even get me
that is.
started.
So, okay, just to wind this up because I see the time. I'm watching.
Mhm.
What do you think he should be shut down as far as musically?
Well, it's already started, unfortunately, to be
I
shut
know.
down.
But do you think he should be shut down?
At least until this is resolved, yes.
How are we going to resolve it?
He has to do everything he can to clear his name.
That's why he wrote the confession. I mean,
Exactly.
That's part of it. That's part of it. But then, like,
bless me, people, for I have sinned.
I mean,
I'm
you're so
sorry.
terrible. That's a good start.
sorry.
But again, you still hiding behind music, and this is still making you money.
Art. Go ahead.
One
Go
more thing.
ahead.
You still hiding behind music, and it's still making you money. Now, and again, we're still not sure how true all stuff is. So you have to be conscious of that kind of thing. I need you to come away from the music. If you got to go to court, whatever, like take a lie detector test, whatever, clear this up and quickly so we can go back to buying your music if we still like you after this.
Okay.
To speak on that, I'm an artist. I'm not a musician, but I'm an artist in other different, arts in the art world. And what I will say to that is that, some people actually put their fullness in the things that they do as far as painting, designing, or music. So if someone is being honest with you and, they're saying that this happened, people listen to music all the time for inspiration or, to feel better about something. So this, I think, was a way for him to let people know that, hey, I'm not perfect. I made the mistake and that, I need to work on myself. Can you all forgive me in a way? Now, if we
That's what he
can't
said,
forgive,
I think.
yeah, and if we can't forgive R. Kelly, then how can we forgive all the other people who are still doing wrong and still saying things that are out of pocket? They have not been condemned or judged or start making money yet still. So think about that.
Those are two excellent points, and I appreciate you guys so much. I appreciate you
you.
so much. Our time is up.
Well, before we
Okay, you got one more
definitely
minute.
want to make a statement.
Oh, you did make it
yes,
earlier.
yeah, so I'll do it now. So, Chicago people, if you're into gospel music, if you've been a part of any type of church choir, anything, you've heard the name Lavelle Lacey. Lavelle Lacey passed away on yesterday. He was one of Chicago's greatest organists, just top notch all the way around.
What church was he affiliated with?
Oh my goodness, it escapes me now, but he's been everywhere. I'm blessed to be at a
How old
church
is
that he
he?
once played at. He's maybe in his 50s.
Wow, he was young.
He just celebrated a birthday.
Gee, was he
Wow.
sick,
Just a little
or was it sudden?
From the story that I got, he had called another musician that he know and told him that he couldn't breathe, and he was on his way to the
Oh.
hospital. And I have another story that said that he didn't make it to the hospital, that his daughter found him in the house.
Okay.
So he
Wow.
may not have made it out, but his wife made the phone call to people letting him know that he had passed away. So I want to dedicate this portion of the program to the memory of Lavelle Lacey, organist, songwriter, musician, everything. Chicago musicians has lost a great, great inspiration. So pray for the city of Chicago, pray for the gospel music industry in Chicago, because we have to bear this burden of really of going on without Lavelle Lacey.
And also, prayer warriors, pray for my sister-in-law. She recently she became ill. Asking for prayers for her. Thanking you
Yes.
again, Elliot, and
You're always
thanking you,
welcome. Thank you.
Javon, for being on
Thank
the
you so
show.
much for
Next
having me.
week, I'm hoping to have a big surprise. If so, watch social media. I'll definitely post it. Have a great week and be blessed.
You stay blessed, guys.